The Blue Eagle was the symbol of the NRA, the National Recovery Administration. This was one of the New Deal's most popular acts and got a lot of publicity because it encouraged firms to raise the wages of the lowest paid, improve working conditions, and give long overdue acceptance to trades unions. Large NRA parades were held, showing people's growing optimism and sense of purpose. To millions of Americans across the nation, it seemed that happier times were really here again.
It's very good to be here at these Virginia CCC camps. I wish I could see them all over the country. I wish that I could take a couple of months off from the White House and come down here and live with them, because I know I'd get full of health the way they have. The only difference is that they put on an average of about 12 pounds apiece since they got here, and I'm trying to take off 12 pounds.
Many Americans thought having Roosevelt in the White House would be good for them. And one of his first orders as president was that people in distress who got in touch with the White House should never be put off. People from all walks of life wrote to the president because they thought he could deal with their problems. But Roosevelt had his opponents too. There were the noisy but small groups of socialists and communists who felt he was not doing enough for working people. Then there were the rich who resented paying higher taxes to finance the New Deal. They thought Roosevelt a traitor to his class, a threat to their way of life. Some even refused to mention his name. Roosevelt faced this opposition head-on.
It is true that the toes of some people are being stepped on and are going to be stepped on. But these toes belong to the comparative few. A few timid people who fear progress will try to give you new and strange names for what we are doing. Sometimes they will call it fascism, and sometimes communism, and sometimes regimentation, and sometimes socialism. But in so doing, they are trying to make very complex and theoretical something that is really very simple and very practical. I believe in practical explanations and in practical policies.
But in the 1936 presidential elections, ALFRED LANDON, Roosevelt's Republican opponent, attacked the New Deal as impractical and extravagant.
After 3 years, it must be obvious to everyone that waste and extravagance do not make jobs.
It is a pitiful spectacle to see Republican leaders call this great program waste and extravagance. Of course we spent money. It went to put needy men and women without jobs to work.
Roosevelt 1280, Landon 664.
As the election results came in, it was clear that Roosevelt had won another landslide victory. Most Americans wanted both him and the New Deal. But there were difficult times ahead. For years, farming in the Midwest had steadily soil, leaving it thin and dry. The severe droughts and high winds between 1933 and 1936 had led to millions of acres literally being swept away. Year after year, the dust storms came, turning day into night. A huge dust bowl was created. Nothing would grow. Animals died. Many owners of small farms went bankrupt, and tenants couldn't pay their rents. There was little immediate help the government could give them. So a mass migration from the land began. Thousands, lured by stories of the Golden West, crammed their few remaining belongings into rickety cars and set off for California. But there was no welcome for them in the rich and fertile Californian countryside. Once proud owners of land were lucky to earn a few dollars in the fields and orchards of the Golden State. Not so many miles away, the film industry in Hollywood was one of the glittering successes of the 1930s. Stars continued to shine for adoring fans. It was mostly a fairy tale world, glamorous and light-hearted, providing the kind of entertainment that helped many Americans forget their troubles. But in the real world, life for the refugees from the Dust Bowl in the Californian work camps was very far removed from that shown in the movies. Across the country in Washington, opposition to the New Deal was mounting. The Supreme Court, the highest legal body in the United States, had declared many of Roosevelt's acts unconstitutional. The New Deal seemed to be at risk. Most of the judges were elderly and politically opposed to Roosevelt. When he proposed increasing their number, he was accused of trying to pack the court with his supporters and suffered a rare defeat in Congress. Most Americans believed that the court was above politics and outside the power of the president. There was trouble on the industrial front, too. In spite of the New Deal's efforts, some big industries still refused to recognize trades unions. So in 1936 and 1937, a wave of sit-down strikes swept the country. Workers in all kinds of jobs refused to leave their workplaces in protest. All over industrial America, especially in the steel, car, and rubber industries, picketing by strikers went on. Some firms employed private armies of strike breakers to break up picket lines. To many employers in 1937, all union members were dangerous communists and deserved to be treated as such. But gradually, the unions won their right to be recognized, though many people, frightened by the strikes, didn't put their money into industry, and unemployment rose again in 1938. Once more, the dole queues appeared. But at least now the government was ready to play its part. The unemployed would no longer have to scavenge in dustbins to keep alive. Social security and old age pensions had been firmly established. By the late 30s, the New Deal had begun to transform the country. Government agencies built roads, homes, schools, hospitals, and public buildings of all kinds. The new dams of the TVA and other schemes not only gave work and electricity to many parts of the country, but it made millions of acres fertile again. There were fewer farmers now, but they were supported by guaranteed prices for their crops. Roosevelt's New Deal had increased the buying power of many more people. Yet, in forcing it through, he offended many groups, big business, the Supreme Court. As he said himself with his customary grin, everybody is agin me, except the electorate. He'd brought America through some very dark days. But it was an event outside America, the European War of 1939, with its demand for American weapons, that got people back to work again. Ironically, it was this, rather than the New Deal, which finally brought unemployment in the United States to an end.